ਅਕੀਦੇ ਦੇ ਮਗਰ ਕੀ ਮਾਨਸਿਕਤਾ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਜਿਸ ਕਿਸਮ ਦੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਬਾਤਾਂ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਮੇਗਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ। ਮੇਗਾ PhD ਦੀ ਵਿਦਿਆਰਥਣ ਹੈ ਮਿਸ਼ਿਗਨ ਸਟੇਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਅਤੇ ਸਾਈਕੋਲੋਜੀ ਆਫ ਰਿਲੀਜਨ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਵਿਸ਼ੇਸ਼ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹ ਖੋਜ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਮੇਗਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਇਸ ਵਪਾਰਕ ਵਕਫੇ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ। ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਸ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੰਮਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਉਸ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਦਾ ਧਰਮ ਖੁਦ ਬਖੁਦ ਸਾਡਾ ਧਰਮ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਪਹਿਲ ਅੱਜ ਤੋਂ ਹਜ਼ਾਰਾਂ ਵਰ੍ਹੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਧਰਮ ਦੇ ਮਾਇਨੇ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਵੱਖਰੇ ਹੋਣਗੇ। ਧਾਰਮਿਕ ਵੰਡੀਆਂ, ਧਾਰਮਿਕ ਮੁੱਦੇ, ਧਾਰਮਿਕ ਅਕੀਦਾ, ਦਾ ਰਿਲੀਜੀਅਸ ਰੂਟੀਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਫਾਲੋ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਅੱਜ ਤੋਂ ਹਜ਼ਾਰਾਂ ਵਰ੍ਹੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇਹਦਾ ਮਾਇਨਾ ਸਰਟਨਲੀ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਵੱਖਰਾ ਹੋਏਗਾ। ਐਵੋਲੂਸ਼ਨ ਆਫ ਰਿਲੀਜਨ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਹੋਈ, ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਕਰਕੇ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਇਹਦਾ ਮੂੰਹ ਮੰਦਰਾ ਬਦਲਦਾ ਗਿਆ, ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਬਾਤਾਂ ਮਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਉਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਔਰ ਮੈਂ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਮੇਗਾ ਜੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਅੱਜ ਗੈਸਟ ਨੇ। ਮੇਗਾ ਕਲੀਨਿਕਲ ਸਾਈਕੋਲੋਜੀ ਦੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਈ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਧਰਮ ਦੇ ਵਿਸ਼ੇ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਉਂਦੀ ਵੀ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਮੇਗਾ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਧਰਮ ਬਾਰੇ, ਧਰਮ ਦੀ ਮਾਨਸਿਕਤਾ ਬਾਰੇ, ਸਾਈਕੋਲੋਜੀ ਆਫ ਰਿਲੀਜਨ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਇੱਕ ਆਮ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਹਿੱਤ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਪਣਾ ਨਜ਼ਰੀਆ ਦੱਸਣ। ਮੇਗਾ, ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ, ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ।
Hello. Hi.
Hello. I guess I want to ask you a personal question to begin with. Why did you choose to be a clinical psychologist, and this is your topic in your PhD study as well?
Yeah, so I am right now in fourth year of my PhD program, and I decided to go into the field because I've always felt that mental health awareness is really important, especially in our culture, within the Indian culture, to be able to treat people from different diverse backgrounds, especially people within our culture and other minority cultures, because there's not as much representation in psychology and in mental health and helping people in this area.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt passionate about entering the field as an Indian American and being able to treat both my people and other people who are not as represented. And I feel mental health is very important, and it's an aspect that's often underlooked within our healthcare system, and it's very important to be able to treat just as much, if not even more, as physical health, as mental health and physical health are very interrelated.
Great. So my first question, Megha, to you is, what is the psychology of religion, and how would you differentiate from theology? So sare lafaz, all these words are kind of different for us, so make us understand what is the psychology of religion. I was like speaking in Punjabi before, I was saying that dharam di mansikta, dharam bare saadi pahunch, the approach towards religion. So kindly let us know what's the psychology of religion and how is it different from theology?
Yeah, that's a very important question, because people often have a difficult time differentiating between what is psychology of religion and what is theology. People will often think that those two things are the same, when in fact they're studied very differently. So when it comes to theology, we often ask ourselves the questions such as, is there a God or a higher power? Or questions such as, is there an eternal soul? And so these questions you don't necessarily study from a scientific perspective, but rather these are questions that you turn to from looking at religious scripture or going to a religious leader such as an imam, church, rabbi, whoever, or whatever religion you ascribe to. You usually turn to the religion itself and its scripture and the people in the religion to find those sorts of answers you're looking for. And so these are sorts of questions and answers that you must decide for yourself. The psychology of religion, on the other hand, this is something that we study from what we say an empirical or a scientific perspective as opposed to theology. Again, theology, you look at scripture or you talk to religious leaders. Psychology of religion is scientifically observing and scientifically testing out why people are religious. What are their motivations for religion? And what is the behavior that people engage in that comes about from being religious or spiritual? And so psychology of religion doesn't challenge any sort of religious doctrine or institution. It's purely trying to figure out why people are religious from a psychological perspective.
So basically, correct me if I'm wrong, that theology is all about religion. Theology, to know about theology is being part of the religion, whereas psychology of a religion is dissecting it out, why people behave the way they do.
Exactly. So within the psychology of religion, while I myself might be a religious or spiritual person, I'm not necessarily going to talk about my religious or spiritual beliefs. Rather, what I'm trying to do is study what makes a person religious, or what makes a person spiritual, or what makes a person not religious altogether. Those are all different psychological domains that we study in the field of psychology.
Let me translate quickly, briefly. ਦੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਮੇਗਾ ਹੋਣੀ ਕਿ ਥੀਓਲੋਜੀ ਤੇ ਸਾਈਕੋਲੋਜੀਕਲੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹਦੀ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਸ਼ੀਏਟ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ। ਥੀਓਲੋਜੀ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਧਰਮ ਬਾਰੇ, ਧਾਰਮਿਕ ਅਦਾਰਿਆਂ ਬਾਰੇ, ਧਾਰਮਿਕ ਵਰਤਾਰੇ ਬਾਰੇ। ਲੇਕਿਨ ਸਾਈਕੋਲੋਜੀਕਲੀ ਇਹਦਾ ਮਾਨਸਿਕ ਪਹਿਲੂ ਹੈਗਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਾਨਸਿਕ ਪੱਖ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਨਿਗਾਹ ਮਾਰਨੀ, ਤਰਕ ਦੀ ਨਿਗਾਹ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਇੰਟੀਫਿਕ ਚੀਰ-ਫਾੜ ਕਰਨੀ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਮਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਧਰਮ ਪ੍ਰਤੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਲਗਾਓ ਹੈਗਾ, ਅਕੀਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਧਰਮ ਪ੍ਰਤੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਝੁਕਾਅ ਹੈਗਾ, ਉਹਦੇ ਕੀ ਕੀ ਕਾਰਨ ਨੇ, ਕਿਹੜੇ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਕਾਰਨਾਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਲੋਕ ਧਾਰਮਿਕ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਕੁਝ ਇਸ ਕਿਸਮ ਦੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੇਗਾ ਨੇ ਦੱਸੀ ਹੈ। ਐਂਡ ਸੈਕੰਡ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਇਜ਼ ਹਾਊ ਡਜ਼ ਰਿਲੀਜੀਅਸ ਥਿੰਕਿੰਗ ਡਿਵੈਲਪ? Hold on 1 second. My second question is, I have written them down. Is religion evolutionary adaptation, or are we wired to be religious?
Yeah, so there's actually no certain answer I can give you with regard to that question with any sort of certainty. Some people will say that, yes, we're built to be religious, we're born to be religious beings. And some people will say that, they'll say the specific term that religion is a byproduct of other sorts of skills that we as human beings have. So an analogy that I like to use with this is thinking about soccer, for example. As human beings, we have the skills to kick, run, see, and throw. These are all capabilities that we as human beings have, and these are capabilities that we've adapted and evolved to have over time. But we cannot say with certainty that itself was an adaptation. It's rather a byproduct of our other abilities, those abilities such as kicking, running, seeing, and throwing. And so if we apply this to religion, we can see it kind of in the same way. That religion may not necessarily be evolutionarily adaptive itself, but it might be seen as a byproduct of other skills that we as human beings possess, such as thinking or talking or imagining. And religious thinking might be a byproduct of these other skills. So people in this area saying that religion itself is not adaptive may say that we have these other skills that make us religious, but it's not necessarily that we were born to be religious itself, if that makes sense.
And let me go for this break, and my next question is that you can answer right after the break. From the psychology of religion point of view, why are human beings religious? Is there a reason that we are religious? Are we kind of afraid of the unknown, or there must be some reason that you can explain? There must be some rationale why we are religious right after the break. ਅਜੇ ਕੁਝ ਸਵਾਲ ਬਚਦੇ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਮੇਗਾ ਨੂੰ ਕਰਨੇ ਨੇ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਕੁਝ ਸਮੇਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਇੱਕ ਜਾਂ ਦੋ ਕਾਲਸ ਅਗਰ ਵਾਕਈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਡਿਸਕਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਸੁਣ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਤੇ ਸਵਾਲ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੋਗੇ, ਬਿਹਤਰ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਕਿ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਬੋਲ ਕੇ ਸਵਾਲ ਕਰੋ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਅਗਰ 2-4 ਲਾਈਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਵਾਲ ਕਰੋਗੇ ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ I'll help ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਉਹ ਮੇਗਾ ਨੂੰ ਸਵਾਲ ਕਰਾਂ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਸਾਈਕੋਲੋਜੀ ਆਫ ਰਿਲੀਜਨ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਇੱਕ ਆਮ ਡਿਸਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ and you already have my question why human beings are religious Megha.
So in general, if we think of ourselves as humans, we tend to have an innate sense that we need to have some sort of meaning behind life. And so when we're younger, we might not question ourselves, but as we get older and we've gone through teenagers and adulthood, at some point, everyone questions what the purpose of life is. It's been said that a best-selling book besides the Bible is this book written by Rick Warren in 2002 called A Purpose-Driven Life. And so there's a reason why people are attuned to this sort of topic. They want to find out what is the purpose of life, why am I here on earth, what is the meaning of life, and what does life look like, or what do we look like even after we leave this earth or after death. And so there was a psychologist by the name of William Hoyt. He actually describes 4 different ways that religion provides us this sort of sense of meaning in our lives. He says that religion is comprehensive, it's accessible, it allows us to transcend ourselves, and it provides direct claim. So if I were to go into each of these, when I go into saying that religion is comprehensive, if you think about any other set of beliefs, religion and spirituality give us a very comprehensive answer to our questions about work, family, relationships, and our moral beliefs. And so we could say that religion helps us identify both ourselves and also helps us identify questions about the world, such as human nature and the afterlife. We can also say that religion is very accessible. Most religious organizations in the world, the large religious organizations in the world, aim to be understandable to all people. And so most religions, at least the major religions, help people figure out how to live in engaging in more good behaviors and decreasing bad behaviors. And then religion also allows us to transcend ourselves. It provides human beings a sense of comfort that there's something more than just us in this world. There's something that we can put our control in that's more than just us as human beings. That might be a higher power, or it might be whatever a person looks to within their religious or spiritual practice. And so this might provide a sense of fulfillment or relief for many people, knowing that or feeling that there's something bigger than ourselves. And then finally, there's really no other system besides religion or spirituality that provides the direct claim that we have a sense of meaning from religion or spirituality itself. And so essentially, we want to know the meaning of life because as human beings, we have this sort of innate tendency that we need to have some sort of control in our life. There's so many things that might feel out of our control, such as our health, our family members' health, or where we go after death. And it might make us feel more comforted by placing our control in a higher being. And this sense of control, whether you want to say it's sort of a real control or an illusion of control, can help people develop stronger minds and move forward in their lives despite life's difficulties.
Megha, is there any yardstick that we can measure? A psychologist can measure that this person is this much religious and the other one is lesser in comparison to this one. Is there any yardstick? How do psychologists measure religious content in anybody?
I guess it comes down to how would you define religious behavior in general? It might differ based on the religious practice a person is engaging in, and it might differ based on a person's beliefs. So some specific ways that as psychologists we might look at measuring religious behavior might just be looking at very elementary things, such as seeing if a person attends religious services, or whether they are a part of a religious institution, or whether they read religious texts, or if they observe religious holidays. those are all sort of observable things that as psychologists we can measure. But it's hard to say that measuring one thing about, like such as measuring whether a person reads religious texts, whether that actually captures if a person is religious or not. So it's usually helpful to have a whole set of questions to ask a person on different domains, such as whether they read religious texts or they attend religious services, asking people different sorts of questions related to those things, determining if they're actually religious or not.
Please do comment one school of thought that religion is always, pushed or propagated by the government of the day, by the king, and this is a cheaper way of governance. And can you comment on this?
Again, it really depends on, if you go back to what we were discussing on whether we're born to be religious or whether we're socially trained to be religious over time. So some people, like I said before, will say that we're not actually born to be religious. Some people will say that it's actually other skills such as thinking and imagining that cause religious behavior. But there are some people that actually say that religion is used as a way to stabilize society. So there's actually a theory called the Big God theory that was developed by a psychologist named Ara Narazian, who said that as society, we have come to believe in these big gods because when societies were smaller, back thousands of years ago, people were able to monitor each other's behaviors by just looking at each other and seeing if their neighbors were behaving in a good or bad way. But then society started to increase to thousands and millions of people, and it became nearly impossible for people to just see if the person next to them was behaving. So the theory there is that big gods came into place as a way to stabilize society, because as a big god, in theory, a big god can see, hear, and think things and see people's behavior that people themselves are not able to see. And so if people ascribe to believing that there are these big gods, they will engage more in good behavior and decrease their bad behaviors.
Let me take questions as well, side by side. Mr. Deo, what's your question? Very briefly, what do you want to ask Megha? Mr. Deo?
Yeah, hello, I'm on there. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. My question to Megha is, first of all, thanks for whatever she's explaining. So, my question is like the religion, whatever she's explaining, I believe she has a Western point of view. Because everybody explaining about the religion thing, they have a, whatever in the universities, the whatever structure, the education structure, rational structure, they get the information from the Western point of view. In my view, religion is a belief, right? Everything is belief. Even somebody said like he's not a religious person, he's atheist. Even he has a different belief. So in our, like, if I say something, I explain the religion. In Sikhism, like I believe in Sikhism, there is nothing like secular system and the spiritual system. There is not a difference. Everything comes under the religion. So same, I'm the person, I have a religious thought, I mean spiritual thoughts, I have a secular thoughts, I mean political thoughts, material thoughts, everything. So what do you think? You think secularism is different than the religion? Because secularism has a belief too. They believe in the nationalism, I mean the country flag. If I live in Canada, I have to believe in the Chart of Rights or Constitution, and I mean there is a Canadian flag.
Great. I think I got it. Yeah, I got it. Thank you, Mr. Deo. Did you get the question, Megha?
So, from my understanding, is the question the difference or the similarity between spirituality and religion?
Yes, he started with that the religion is about belief system, is all about Vishwash, and then he was asking and that Sikhism, and that's what he believes in, and he wants to ask secularism and all those things. Is that part of religion as well? Can it be differentiated? That he thinks that Sikhism as a religion covers everything.
So when I say the difference, or when I say spirituality or religion, people sometimes use those both as the same term, or they'll use them separately. I'm describing them separately because within our field, we measure them in different ways. So, for example, religiousness will look at whether a person ascribes to certain religious doctrines or specific religious beliefs within a set of religious ideals. So that might be within Sikhism, it might be within Hinduism, maybe within Christianity, whichever religion you actually ascribe to. And so I think what the caller was saying was that even as he is a religious person, he also sees himself as a spiritual person, which is perfectly correct. So we will often say within our field that a religious person can be a spiritual person, that is, that they themselves can spiritually feel fulfilled by looking up to some sort of higher power. But if we reverse that, we can also say that a spiritual person does not necessarily need to be a religious person. What I mean there is that a spiritual person can innately feel that there's some sort of higher presence present in front of them, but they don't necessarily need to prescribe to some sort of specific religious ideals, if that makes sense.
Great. Avtar, what's your question, Avtar?
Good morning to both of you.
Please go ahead.
Sir, my question is like basically my observation, and my observation will lead into a question. Like, my question is like, when the human being came into existence, I'm taking back you to the era, like everything was a chaos, and in that chaos, people tried to make an order, and that order was obviously dominated by hierarchy of dominance. And the person who was sitting at the top of the hierarchy of dominance set some rules and regulations. As everyone started following, that became an order. But I think over a period of time, that order was followed so extensively that they forget there are changes happening around that order, and that order itself leads to a chaos, and that chaos again is replaced by a hierarchy of dominance, and another people. From that chaos, again, order was formed. I think that is how the religion, because when I see the religion, all the religion did not came into existence at the same time. One came first, then came another, then came another. So my question is that the human, like psychology, or like it's the human proclivity towards creating an order from a chaos and then following that order so extensively that it itself becomes a chaos, then another hierarchy of dominance came and replaced that chaos into order. I hope you got my point.
Great, Megha, and I think my question, along with this caller's question as well, and that is that how does the thinking of a person changes right from the birth slowly when he grows old? You can answer that question and touch upon this one as well.
Okay. So I think the caller's question, and correct me if I'm wrong, was the caller's question how religions change across time from one religion to a different religion?
His observation, yes, is that life was chaos, life was haywire to begin with, and slowly through process of self-regulation, self-governance, and sort of there was need of the hour. So slowly it developed into a religion, and it changes continuously. That was, I think, the basic idea.
Yeah. So to answer that question, within our religious, from our observations, we have seen that yes, That's exactly right. Chaos, human beings, as in our nature, we cannot handle chaos. We often need order. Like I said before, human beings feel comfortable, we have some sort of sense of control. And so it can be really overwhelming to feel that we need to have control over our lives when it comes to health, when it comes to work, when it comes to the way to live, and how humans are actually going to exist after death. And so those questions can be really overwhelming, and it can kind of make us feel like we don't have a sense of control anymore. So religion itself, it's believed, was developed, or the idea of a higher power, people think may have been developed because it allows people to feel like they have a sense of control over their lives by saying that God or higher power will be able to take care of their sufferings and will be able to take care of some of these things that are feeling a little too overwhelming, such as health or my questions about the afterlife. As for how different religious organizations develop, this often comes down to people having different mindsets as to how some of their religious questions might be answered. And it often comes down to how culture itself views these religious questions. So, like the first caller had said, Western culture is often pretty different from Eastern culture. And so this difference in culture can often create schisms or divisions in how a person views their religion, and this might, in essence, then it might form different religions as a result of cultural differences.
And before I go for this break, I have a question for you. Please be ready for that. As we know that our listenership, most of them, they are immigrants, immigrant families, immigrant family kids. So how does it affect our religion? The immigration process itself is very tormenting. It's so many things change when we come to different countries from a different, altogether different background. Kindly touch upon that. And that immigration and acculturation how it can affect the religiosity. Right after this break, Megha ਹੁਣੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। Megha PhD ਦੀ ਵਿਦਿਆਰਥਣ ਹੈ, ਕਲੀਨਿਕਲ ਸਾਈਕੋਲੋਜੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੇ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਈ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਵਿਸ਼ੇਸ਼ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਸਮਾਂ ਕੱਢਿਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ। ਵਪਾਰਕ ਵਕਫੇ ਤੋਂ ਫੌਰੀ ਬਾਅਦ ਮੁੜਦੇ ਵਾਪਸ। ਰਿਲੀਜਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੱਖੋ ਵੱਖਰੇ ਸਵਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੁੱਛ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਮੇਗਾ ਨੂੰ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਿ ਮਿਸ਼ੀਗਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਦੀ ਵਿਦਿਆਰਥਣ ਹੈ, PhD ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਧਰਮ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਤੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਮਾਨਸਿਕਤਾ, ਸਾਈਕੋਲੋਜੀ ਆਫ ਰਿਲੀਜਨ ਦੇ ਵਿਸ਼ੇ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਵਿਸ਼ੇਸ਼ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਐਂਡ Megha, like I said before, that when you come to these different countries, when you emigrate to different countries, and you can't bring your culture, you can't bring your religious practices. All you can do is only few pounds of your daily need stuff. So how does this immigration affect your religiosity?
So that's a good question. There's a couple of different theories that are out there as to what affects religious thinking in both a person that's immigrated to a Western country such as the United States or Canada, and how their children's religious thinking develops when an immigrant from a different country ends up raising their child in a country different from where they grew up. And so there's two different theories that we often look at, one being attachment theory. So attachment theory specifically looks at how attached is a child to their parent or to their caregiver. And there's two primary attachment processes that we look at. Whether a child has a secure attachment to their parent or whether they have an insecure attachment to their parent. So in a secure attachment, as it sounds, when a child feels safe and secure with their parent, they usually have a very good relationship with their parents, and it's a relationship that is built upon trust. And so this type of relationship, it affects a child's religious or spiritual development. So if a child such as a child that grows up in an immigrant household and is then a first generation American Indian or Canadian American, Indian American, or Canadian American. This sort of relationship can affect whether that child will become religious or not. Well, if the child grows up in a secure religious upbringing, they may decide to adopt the same beliefs as their parents because they feel that they have that secure, that trusting relationship with their parents. Versus a child that might grow up in an insecure relationship with their parents, that is a relationship that doesn't have much trust, a relationship that's not very stable. The child may then go against their parents' religious beliefs that they come from and adopt their own views. Now, on top of all of that, in addition to the relationship that a child has with their parent, we also have the culture that we live within. So we live in a very very diverse culture in which not everybody has the same religious views. In fact, we live in a culture where Christianity really predominates the religious views in both Canada and the United States. And so when a child of an immigrant grows up in either the United States or in Canada, they are confronted with belief systems that are different from the ones that they grow up in. And so through socialization, through meeting peers with different religious beliefs or meeting just other people with different religious beliefs, this may cause a child to question and doubt the religious beliefs that they grew up with. And this often comes down to because children and human beings in general, they don't necessarily like being different from others, because being different from others can cause ostracization. It might cause a person to feel like they're different from another person. It may make them feel left out, which can lead to things like anxiety or depression. So this may make a person want to either convert to a different religion or just give up on their homeland religion altogether.
Megha, we have a minute and a half left, but I'm sure that we can talk on this topic for hours and hours. Next time we can elaborate on this point, but my last question is, don't you think that immigration gives us an opportunity? It has many advantages and disadvantages, of course, but it gives us an opportunity to delete certain unwanted practices, to make it more relevant, which probably we can't do that while sitting in the same place we were born, in the family, in the environment, in the society. But when we come thousands of miles away from that place, then we can really bring the essence of the religion, the real philosophy and the intent. We can follow that and leave those unwanted things behind. What do you say about that?
I mean, I think that's the beauty of our society. We live in a very multicultural, very diverse society where we would hope that all of these religious beliefs and practices can coexist in one environment. And so I think it's wonderful that people come from different cultures and come from different backgrounds and come into this Western society and bring their thoughts and beliefs and try to instill this within their children so that their children can carry on their beliefs and throughout generations and time, and so that it doesn't just stay in the home country, but it spreads to other countries around the world.
Megha, thank you very much for your time today, and we'll be in touch in the future as well. Thank you.
All right. Sounds good.
मेगा हुना नाले गलबात हुई है जी, और बहुत सारे लोग जो समझते नहीं, मैं तर्जुमा लफ्ज बा लफ्ज नहीं कर सकिया, लेकिन आज ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਨੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਆਮ ਨਾਲ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਹਟ ਕੇ, ਜੇਕਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਚੰਗਾ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਹੋਵੇ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਫੀਡਬੈਕ ਵੀ ਦਿਓ। ਵਪਾਰਕ ਵਕਫਾ ਆਉਣੇ ਵਾਪਸ ਅਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦਾ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਸਪਾਂਸਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ ਹਰਮੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਿੱਧੂ ਖੁੱਡੀਆਂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਵੱਲੋਂ। ਪੈਸੇ ਭਾਰਤ ਭੇਜਣੇ ਨੇ